Welcome to a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the St. Helena Unified School District. Today is Thursday, March 12, 2020. I am Maria Haug, Board President. I would like to introduce my fellow trustees, Lisa Pelosi, Julio Ogin, Jeannie Kerr, and Jeff Conwell. Also joining us this evening is our student representative to the board, Mr. Joe Brody. I would like to introduce our district staff, Superintendent Dr. Mary Lou Wilson, Chief Academic and Human Resource Officer, Mr. Christopher Heller, Chief Business Official, Ms. Andy Stubbs, Executive Assistant to the Superintendent and Governing Board, Ms. Erica Madrigal, and our IT Systems Analyst, Mr. Derek Machado. Thank you, Derek. We are delighted that you're here this evening in person or viewing on channel 27 or our YouTube channel. A copy of this board meeting video will also be available on our website at www.sthelena.unified.org. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm sorry, the approval of agenda. I'm so sorry. I would like to request a motion to approve the agenda for this meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve tonight's meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Now please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, I would like to direct members of the public to the screens stating the rules for public comments at board meetings. You're requested to state your name and address and keep your comments concise, brief, and limited to 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the public that would like to make a public comment on any items that are not on the agenda tonight? Thank you. And now we're on to presentations. First, we have our presentation by our student representative to the board, Mr. Joe Brody. Thank you, Joe.
Of course. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March board meeting, and this is the student representative report to the Board of Trustees for the month of March. As with the format with all of my reports, I will start at the high school and work my way down to the littles at the primary school. So I'm gonna steal this slide clicker very quickly. Starting at here at the high school, one too far. I'm gonna veer a little bit off the slide. But that's okay, so just bear with me, please. First things first, St. Helena Drama was proud to open Newsies this past week. A cast of 35 students and a crew of 15 brought these scrapey young 1899 orphans to life. The show loosely follows the real-life 1899 strike led by Kid Blank against the newspaper owners in the city of New York City. The show was scheduled to run into this weekend. Unfortunately, due to concerns and to mitigate the spread of COVID-19, this weekend's run has been canceled. But fear not, supporters of live theater. Tomorrow, students will go on, and it will be live streamed at 7 o'clock on the St. Helena Drama Facebook page. So I invite all of you to check that out tomorrow night. Again, veering a little bit off of the slide, we were scheduled to have a school exchange with Pittsburgh High School. Again, mitigating the spread of COVID-19, that visit was canceled, but I am going to sub in very quickly 2 other things. We had our career day in February, so we had some 20-odd career professionals come and speak to our students all about different career clusters and pathways, really career-oriented, getting our students what do they want to do when they walk out of these classrooms for the very last time. And then my second little shout-out goes to the Advanced Ag Systems class here at the high school. They recently competed in the UC Davis Agri-Science Field Day. All students were in the top 5 of their division, and we had the first high individual, second high individual, third high individual, and fourth high individual, and the team took first high team all around, so that is very exciting. Moving to the middle school, I am very happy to report that on February 19th, I was joined by Dr. Wilson, President Haug, and Trustee Pelosi. We spoke with the 7th grade leadership class at the RLS and the ASB team. We talked a lot about the Green Initiative, collecting student voice to assist in our upcoming revisions. And in speaking with students, it really reminded me why we have the Green Initiative in the first place. As much as it is for us as a district, it is really for our students, for them to grapple with and learn about. So it was really exciting to hear what they had to say and then bring it back up into this big stone building and really make those changes possible, which was super exciting. Moving on to the elementary school, I was super excited to hear about Pioneer Days because that is one of the my top 10 Santa Elena Unified activities maybe ever. So third graders had the privilege, they dressed up as pioneers and rotated through a bunch of different activities learning about California pioneer history and culture. And then this was also really exciting. On Valentine's Day, the student council team visited Silverado Orchards, so interacted with some of our more senior citizens, brought them Valentine's Day cards, sang them some wonderful songs, and really just had an all-around great time. There we go. Going all the way down to the primary school, this was super cool. They didn't have this when I was here, so I was really excited that I got to go to this. We had the first grade career fair. So this fair, the theme was goods and services. So there were 6 local businesses that all had interactive stations set up for the students. So Ray Ray's Tacos, the Rionda House, Central Valley, the St. Helena Star, St. Helena Fitness, and the Napa County Ag Bureau. So students rotated through the 6 stations, and they had, you'll see, oh, there's not a picture up there, but they all had a little passport with a little, what am I learning at this station? What is this career cluster? And so really exciting to see what we're doing here at the high school, career fairs here at the high school. That experience mirrored all the way down at the primary school and following students all the way up. With that, are there any questions or comments? Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Do any trustees have any questions? No. Okay. So next, moving on to item 5B, the presentation on the Napa Valley Vine Trail. I would like to call in Mr. Philip Sales.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the board. Philip Sales, I'm the Executive Director of the Napa Valley Vine Trail Coalition. I believe about almost 18 months ago or so, we came before you to talk a little bit about the school-to-school study that we embarked on. Since that time, we've sort of scaled that back a little bit, but we are looking at a connector through St. Helena from the high school to Pratt Avenue. Pratt Avenue is the southernmost point of the vine trail that will be constructed next year between Calistoga and St. Helena. So we're hoping to find a route through town. What I've come to talk to you about this evening, though, is a slightly different matter. This June, there's an opportunity for us to apply for some grant funding through the Active Transportation Program. This is a federal and state program that's run through the California Department of Transportation. We've been successful in the past in getting almost $14 million for this project through that program. This year is kind of unique because this year they're actually scheduling 4 years worth of money. So this will be our last opportunity to apply for a grant to construct the trail from St. Helena down to Yountville until probably 2024 or 25. So we're very anxious to try to put an application in. Chuck McMinn, my board president, and I had an opportunity to meet with your superintendent a couple of weeks ago and talk a little bit about some ways in which you could help us. I'm just going to click through briefly. One of the issues we have of sort of getting a bike trail up Napa Valley is most of the road has been taken up either by railroads or by State Route 29. And so our current alignment we're looking at is to try to integrate the high school into this route on the west side of Highway 29. And so we had a consultant take a look at how we might be able to do that in front of the high school. I was actually kind of tickled when I was walking the hallway just before this meeting to see there's a wonderful photograph of an electric railroad right in front of the high school here that I didn't know that's where it went, but it was sort of encouraging to know there was a connection for people to get to the high school by something other than a car even then. So on that plan there, you can see what we're trying to do is squeeze a little bit of extra space between the existing trees and the parking, and we can do that by re-angling your existing 60-degree parking that you've got there right now into a 45-degree format. You would lose approximately 6 parking spaces in doing that. But it seems that would be we'd be picking up basically a route along the frontage of the high school. The reason I'm bringing this to you today is because we would like to get from the school district a letter of intent. As we go forward with this grant application, we have to show that we've got some route that everybody's agreed on. So we're talking to property owners all the way from Yountville up to St. Helena, where we might need an easement. In this case, we'd be asking the school district to basically allow us to route the school on that 10 feet width along the frontage there. If we can get these letters of intent, they are revocable, they're non-binding, but they basically tell the agencies that we've actually gone and talked to people. It's not just sort of like we put a line on a map. So we're hoping that you might consider asking the superintendent to sign that. The second slide is further down the trail, heading south of town, where you have the cooperative nursery right now. It fronts onto the wine train. In this particular case, the wine train has offered to grant us an easement on their right-of-way. Their right-of-way varies between Yountville and St. Helena. In some cases, it's 20 feet wide. In other places, it's 80 feet wide. So we're looking at every parcel frontage onto the wine train property. In this case, in order to accommodate the trail next to the railroad tracks, and we have to be separate, 10 feet separate from the center line of tracks to the edge of the trail, we would need to ask you for 2 feet to do some shoulder work along the trail. So that would be the ask on the frontage of that second property there. So again, these are 2 ways in which the district could really help us out if you're willing to give us a letter of intent. I'd be happy to answer any questions on the specifics.
Is there, thank you, Mr. Sales.
Yep.
Is there anyone present in the public audience who wishes to comment on this agenda item? Trustees, do you have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Anna. Please.
I'll comment. Hi, I'm Anna SHUTO. I'm a parent of a kid at the primary and the elementary school, and I'm speaking on behalf as a parent because there's been so much interest in all of our schools with safe biking for parents and kids getting to our schools. So I really encourage you to please sign this letter. It would be wonderful for our whole community. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Trustees, do you have any questions or comments?
So my question is to Dr. Wilson. So as far as what is the logistics as far as if we did sign that, would come back to us then in a month, or what is the timeline on that?
If you were to provide direction to staff to complete the letter of intent, then I would ask Andy to work with legal counsel to review the legalities of all aspects and then bring it back forward to you at the April board meeting for action.
Okay. And then as far as the co-op, the St. Helena Cooperative Nursery School, is that something that the director, Maureen Kelly, knows about this as well then?
Andy and I met with Maureen Kelly a week ago, walked the site, looked at the area. She always will request that no trees are removed, and was also very much in support of the vine trail.
Great, thank you.
The trail would be on the outside of the fence of the co-op, and so it would not impact the parking of the co-op at all.
Go ahead. You have something?
I just had a question. I think last year, I forget who came in. Oh, it was Chuck. Because so we're talking about just right now the high school, the Pratt Avenue, and then the section in the co-op. Do you guys have any more information as far as the rest of the trail where that's going to run through?
Through downtown?
Yeah, like through by the elementary school. No, I think
we
that was
are
one of the
going past the elementary school on Oak. One of the routes that we're looking at right now is to widen the sidewalk on Long Oak Street. There's actually a very generous sidewalk on the east side of Oak, that we could widen out to 10 feet and create a shared use path in that area. So we're looking at integrating that as part of the route. However, because the City Council has given direction to look at 3 alternatives, we're also looking at a route on the other side of Highway 29, and also the possibility of anything we could do using Money Way, for instance, is another route. So, and BKF, the engineers who are under contract with the city, they're working closely with us to come up with those alternatives. We hope to have something for City Council in a little while.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And if I could just, I was looking back at this PowerPoint from 2018, and just under the pros, it was talking about safe for the 1,000 students a day, and then removes 470 cars a day from the St. Helena roads. Do we find that those stats to still be accurate in 2020?
Yes, this would be, you probably noticed on the first slide, I showed one of the alternatives that we have as a sort of aerial. We're not going down Oak Street all the way beyond Adams in this particular case, because first of all, the sidewalk narrows down. There's a lot of driveways you're going to have to deal with residential, and there would be a loss of parking north of Adams. So that we're focusing pretty much between Adams and Mitchell as being part of the route, and it would work out with our crossing of Highway 29 back towards Library Lane, and then picking up the wine train right of way up to Fulton.
Okay, thank you.
So trustees, how would we like to give direction to Dr. Wilson? Would we like to go forward with the legal recommendation and bring forward the letter of intent next meeting? Or does anyone have any proposals on that?
I would be for bringing forth the letter of intent and having them take the next steps in that.
I would be in support of that as well.
I am as well.
Okay. We don't need to vote on this, do we?
No, I'm just seeking direction tonight.
Okay,
Thank you.
That's what I thought. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sales.
so much.
Thank
And
you so
I also would approve of that.
Much obliged. Thank you.
Item 5C, presentation of Give Big, and it's going to be Cecilia Raffo and Anna Chateau.
Yes, it's. Let me do it. It's been a long day of not touching anything, except for lots of books. Yes, let's see. Well, it's March all over again, and this is our 6th year of collaboration with the parent groups and the foundation in our effort to raise funds to enhance and the core curriculum for all St. Helena public schools. Just a couple facts. Last year we had 645 donors, and 46% of those had some relationship to the district. And 3/4 of them came from the Valley, so that's kind of nice. We get a lot of support. This year, we're still doing school incentives with the primary school, the class that has the most donations, not the most amount, getting a pizza party, pizza lunch, and then the elementary school will get a chocolate fountain party for the class, and then RLS, it's the whole class, will get donuts. Again, they like that. And then the high school, we're looking at a ping pong table, which the ag department would build. So we would supply the funds. But we know how difficult it is to get the high school to, help out in this way, because everyone's taxed. We have the ag and the drama and everyone wanting to fund special interests. We're continuing with our Dine and Donate and our Shop and Donate. And the week of the 21st, 22nd, we have a lot going on. And then on the day of, Cafe de la Valle will be supporting us. So go out, shop. If anything, we need to do it just for our local businesses, if not for us too. We will have a table at Sunshine on the Saturday and Sunday before the day. And this year we're really trying to promote that it's really only, what we want is $324 per student to give them and give the teachers everything they want to enhance the classroom. And we're trying to, break it down into it's 90 cents a day. And so we're hoping it's a constant struggle to educate people about where this money goes, why it's important, and why we're still kind of asking. So, did you want to? Yeah, you do want to add.
Yeah, I can add a couple of points. So for that point, we always say that what we do at Give Big is the sprinkles on top, we like to say, because the school district, obviously everything that you do does such a great job with how we pay our teachers and the staff and the core classroom environment that we can provide kids. And Give Big money allows us to be innovative with teachers and add in new things and really enriching learning experiences like the field trips and the books and all these things that really make it special to be able to say that you get to go to school in St. Helena, and that makes it such a desirable place to live. And so we so appreciate everybody in the community. As we see year after year, they step up and they give donations. Right now we're at about 20 to 25%. We're around $81,000 of our goal. We are concerned now with the recent virus and people's fear and the stock market, and we want to say this is the best way to give. You just give online. You can just click on your own computer and with your cell phone. It's all very safe. Please continue to give donations. We really do appreciate it. I think that's about it. We will have a plan in place for if school did have to close, we would still accept donations at the library and at Lolo's as long as it's still open, because we know we're taking it day by day. But we really are fortunate that our giving is online and it's easy to give. Thank you. Oh, and I did want to give a shout out. We had 3 $10,000 donations already from Scarecrow, Satui, and Spotswood. They really stepped up as leaders this year and did it early and are showing a major commitment in our public schools. Yeah.
And the kids are excited, at least at the primary and the elementary school. We need to.
Thank you, Ms. Rafa and Ms. Chateau. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Board members, questions or comments?
I have some comments. I would just, first of all, I want to say that the Give Big Committee has done a really great job. I mean, it's way more out there than it was at inception, and every year it gets better and better. The Dine and Donates have been great. I've participated in them. I think you guys got great turnouts on those. And then I just want to take a moment, because I do believe this is your last year after 6 years. So thank you, because you were the crux of that committee. So thank you for everything you've done.
Any other board members? Thank you, ladies, and thank you to everyone who supports Give Big. It really helps our district. Superintendent Subcommittee reports. So there were just 2 this week. I'm sorry. Lisa, the board member report first.
Okay. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to actually step foot on that adorable primary school campus, but Principal Sanguinetti was kind enough to have a phone conversation with me this time around. And she reported the great success and fun that was had all week with Read Across America and Pajama Day, and they had over 40 guest readers on that Friday. So she was quite pleased with that turnout. Kind of tagging on to Joe's mention of Career Day, a 3rd Career Day is coming up at the primary school on April 2nd. And Principal Sanguinetti just was really kind of over the moon about the collaboration between the Napa County Office of Ed. The partnership has just been really wonderful, and she's very excited about a 3rd one coming to the primary school, because it really does allow an opportunity for those little ones to think about careers other than just be a doctor or a fireman or a nurse, or it really starts the exposure early. And then lastly, she reported that the interest is still increasing for tours at the campus, and at the upcoming tour for TK and Kinder, there are already 18 parents signed up for that tour. So the interest is there. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Now we have the superintendent subcommittee reports. So that would be board policy committee, which was Lisa, you and I.
I mean, I won't, again, I think this is almost a redundant report to give you because everything is in our agenda for tonight. So you'll see everything that is recommended to approve, ones that go back for further discussion. There's not too many. There was just a few that on hold for the right reasons, because further exploration and how they might pertain to our campuses needed to be explored a little bit. But I think the committee that puts together this research does a great job, and we should all be very thankful for what they do and bring to us. But truly, you'll see what's coming forward to you, and the recommendations are there, so you can make your decisions from that point.
Thank you, Lisa. And business operations and facilities, Julio? Thank you.
So, is this on? Our meeting was March 4th. Joe, the first item was Joe provided a quick facility update. The vintage roof repair is going to begin hopefully during spring break and mostly through the summer, and that's going to be completed by the start of next school year. They also identified some summer painting rooms that the principals helped identify for over the summer as well. We had an update on the green initiative. Currently, I guess we're more in the process of exploring some of those green solutions. So the way President Maria explained to us was kind of that they're not just looking at solar, but they're kind of looking at a wider scope of solutions. And so I believe Andy was waiting on a few proposals with qualifications and references of these companies to see which direction we go in. And there may be a subcommittee for that might be formed. And then finally, most of the meeting we spent, we had Josh Delina, who's a consultant from Greystone West. And he came and talked to the committee as far as the RLS track and asphalt. And pretty much he just walked us through some of the different options. Obviously, they all have varying costs, and so we kind of looked at all three of the levels of work that they could do. We had an opportunity to ask questions and have a discussion amongst the group, and we came to a consensus as far as moving forward with a combination of recommendations, and so there's going to be some follow-up that Andy is going to follow up on. And then last, we reviewed the guidelines for the commemorative additions to facilities or grounds, and so hopefully if you see it in the policy, it was embedded in there, so I won't go over that, but I think that was pretty much it for that meeting.
Thank you, Julio. And next we have item 6C, SHTA report, Mr. Brandon Farrell.
Good evening. My report is ever-changing today. So we had some changing news about some cancellations, as you all well know and are aware of. For the most part, from what the reports that my principals have given me, and it's very early, I have not received much feedback, but the feedback that I have received has been pretty positive from some of the schools. We've had some questions regarding, how decisions are made and where things are, why certain decisions are made. But for the most part right now, teachers are ready to provide what the students are needing. And I think it's a big job. The students look to us first for guidance and for what's going to be happening, and they like to hear our made-up stories, but we don't have any, so they make up their own. So but the students do that in somewhat loose form. They know that the adults that are taking care of them in our schools are there for their best interests, and I feel like we have a good team and some good leaders, and we're making decisions as best we can. So it's been a trying day for our teachers, but outside of a few questions and things I have to still research and answer, hopefully we'll keep everybody positive and going forward here in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
And we do not appear to have a report from the CSEA, item 6D tonight. So we move on to item 6E, the Superintendent's Report. Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
Thank you. And thank you, Brandon, and also Joe, for spending some time talking about our current situation. I am going to spend my time this evening talking about the COVID-19 or coronavirus. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, our emergency team has been meeting. That team is made up of staff members, principals, directors, myself, executive cabinet, representation from both of our unions and our board president, to analyze and identify what we can be doing to prepare for COVID-19. Some of the things that have occurred that we have implemented over the last couple of weeks, we've asked our teachers to talk to students about washing their hands more frequently and using the happy birthday song as a method to time it. We have increased the level of cleaning in those many touched spots, doorknobs and whatnot. We've brought in some portable sinks to increase the number of places where children, students can wash their hands. And there is hand sanitizer just about everywhere on every campus, including this boardroom. This morning at approximately 6 a.m., while listening to the news, I realized pretty quickly that we have moved from preparing to mitigating. With the governor's declaration of the size of groups that can be meeting together and identifying ways to mitigate as opposed to prepare for the virus spread. That took us to a cancellation of some field trips today and an immediate meeting this morning with all superintendents along with the Office of Emergency Services. Myself and some staff have participated in those meetings over the last couple of weeks, and those have now stepped up into 3 times a week instead of 2 times a week. The superintendents, along with Dr. Reluccio, our county public health officer, are committed to serving the county in unison. We felt it was important that we have a common message and that our schools all follow the same set of rules and regulations. So Erica has up on the screen, I believe, the district website. One of the preparation that we also worked on was giving our community a full page dedicated to COVID-19. So the button that she's clicking on right now that seems to have some gremlins in it tonight will display for our school community, whether it's an employee, a parent, or a member of the community related to the school, lots of resources around COVID-19 that have all been vetted through public health and CDC. Also, strategies as parents of how to keep their children healthy, hand washing videos. I know that some of our staff participated in a hand washing video as well, and some of our students. And so the website is really deep in information and full of lots of support for our families. Today, as Brandon mentioned, as we move to mitigation, the work that we are asking and the cancellations and the what we have done, I want to review with you for a few minutes as a board and the community at large. There is a document that went home today via Blackboard email to all of our families in Spanish and or English, and it outlines the actions that the county is taking, again, to mitigate the spread of this virus. Dr. Reluccio, although we still have 0 confirmed cases in our county, she is certain that community spread is going to become a reality if it already isn't, as she is bringing in COVID-19 testing sites, and that we'll know more information. So within this chart, there are a couple of the items that I want to highlight, and I truly do encourage all of our community to go to this document and read through it so that they can be certain of the impacts of this mitigation. In the second row, I wanted to highlight that any of our students with pre-existing health conditions, within the next number of school days, our school nurse, Barbara Dondero, and or their principal will be contacting parents to talk about the risk of a high needs child with a pre-existing health concern, to determine if a at-home independent study contract is most appropriate for them. Again, that'll be left to the parents' decision. We just want to have those conversations. On that first page down at the lower bottom, lower half, there are comments about gatherings 50 or more and 50 or less. If you look at the governor's recommendations and Dr. Reluccio's recommendations, they are staying with the number 250, that nothing over 250 should continue as far as gatherings. And that's any kind of a performance, a parent meeting, staff meetings, fundraisers. As a community of superintendents truly working to mitigate and minimize the spread of this virus, we have taken a more aggressive stand, and all of the districts are limiting non-essential gatherings to 50. And within the non-essential gatherings, less than 50, we are working to ensure that there is the social distancing, as we worked tonight to distance each of you from each other with more distance than typically there is. The recommendation is 6 feet. And all of those events are indoor and or outdoor events. In addition, we have canceled all field trips. These are any local field trips, domestic field trips, or international field trips. That includes a walking field trip. And all of those items are put in place for the rest of March and through our spring break. So April 13th, unless further notification is made, those cancellations would be lifted. In addition, working with all of the superintendents in the district and Dr. Reluccio, we have canceled all CIF athletics, and that is through April 1st at this time. That includes any practice. So, for example, our pool is closed, and all of our coaches have been notified that they will not be practicing, and there will not be any games. And a huge thank you to Tom Hoppy for working on that notification. There are some other pieces with regards to this, these steps. Finally, I would close with, we are asking our non-parent guardian volunteers to discontinue volunteering through that April 13th date. We have the pleasure of so many seniors that come into our schools and work with our children, and we know that seniors are at risk, and we don't want them, they are so committed to us, we don't want them to feel that they need to continue to come and put themselves at risk. So we are disallowing volunteers that are not parent or guardian through the 13th. In addition to this notification that went out from my office today, there's also notification on the district website from Dr. Reluccio, and I also know that through Nixle and the County Office of Emergency Services, reports have been going out as well. It's a lot of information. And, the last one that I do need to mention is that Run Big does fall within that timeline. That does have over 1,000 students together. And so at this time, I'm going to need to definitely postpone it, potentially cancel it, depending on scheduling. That's disappointing to me. Run Big started the second year that I have been with you, and it's the students' way of participating in Give Big, and that's a lot of people together in one place. And so following these guidelines, we will need to postpone Run Big. I'm happy to answer any of your questions you might have.
Any public comment? Board members, questions or comments? Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much for getting all this together. I know it's kind of interesting. Jeannie and I went down to a conference in Sacramento, SF Squared, and with the superintendent. And one of the things they always say that's fascinating about a superintendent and or the district staff is they're expected to become experts immediately on something they don't know anything about. And this is truly the case here in St. Helena. I feel so fortunate that we have such a great team that is looking at all this stuff, putting all this stuff out there. And as you said, we've got the 4 steps. We're kind of looking at it, and definitely mitigation is where we're at now. So it's a nice transition. It's not a good transition, but it's a realistic transition, and it's upsetting, I'm sure, to everybody involved in plays, involved in field trips, involved in sporting events. But to me, it's the complete right thing to do, and to have all this on our website is really nice information for everybody. So thank you, Dr. Wilson.
If I may, I would again like to echo that thanks to all of the faculty and staff and the emergency response team. Please know that students really are appreciative. It is hard to let go of some of these things that we've been working on for a very long time. But again, health is our #1 concern, not only for our students, but for our community. So again, thank you for all that you're doing. I would also like to add, if memory serves me correctly, during 4th period today, as I was scrolling through the district website, the district protocol for infectious diseases is also on that website. So if anyone is interested in looking specifically at what our district has, we have those 4 stages on that COVID-19 information page as well.
Absolutely correct. Thank you, Joe.
Anyone else? I would just like to say on behalf of as president, I've been watching Mary Lou lead the emergency team, and I just have to say I'm really confident in the direction we've been going. It's so good to know that we're on the same page as the other school districts in the county, that we have one message, that there is a real methodical and calm approach to listening to the recommendations of the health department and working together with all the districts within the county. I think that that way we don't have any comparisons or surprises, and we have one message and we're following something all together. And that really, I think that really makes us look like it shows that we know what we're doing and we're moving forward in a very difficult time in the right direction.
Thank you, President Haugen. If I could add just one more piece that I think is really important. When meeting with staff today, Executive Cabinet and Mary Ellen, each of us went to one school site, and we talked with the staff about the steps that we're taking to mitigate. In addition, then, our principals talked with their staff about what Brandon was referring to, preparing our students. And so over the course of the next couple of weeks, our teachers are going to be spending some time, some of them have already completed it, having distance learning ready for students in the event that we do have a school closure. Again, we are not closed today, and we know we don't ever want to be, and yet our teachers and our principals, our entire school community is so committed to our students and their success. I appreciate their professionalism and their willingness to do what it takes to ensure that our students are active, engaged learners in the event that we are closed.
Thank you. And then we have the 4 written reports from each of the principals at each of the schools. And I would just like each of the principals to read the names of their students of the month for the board. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bencinto.
Yep. So for the high school in 9th grade, we have Alejandro Topete Esquivel and Talia Ritchie. 10th grade, Stephen Larrabee and Valeria Heredia. 11th grade, Jason Adkins and Tanya Echeverria. 12th grade, Jake Lehman and America Flores Hernandez.
The students of the month for RLS who were safe, respectful, and responsible are 8th grade, Camila Zazueta, 7th grade, Henry Burton, and 6th grade, Saul Rios.
In 3rd grade at St. Helena Elementary School, we've got Sophia Calabet, Valeria Palma Uribe, Ellie Park, Brianna Pham, Christian Torres Ortiz, and Lucas Zuniga. In 4th grade, Andreas Bjorkman, Haven Chateau Mumford, Jose Lopez Galvan, Marcos Moya, Yair Reyes Sanchez, and Angel Zehueca. 5th grade, Juliana Carroll, Angel Flores, Reina Guzman, Camila Maldonado, Christian Romero, and finally, Matias Ruvacalba.
The students that are being honored for being safe, respectful, and responsible at the primary school are Emiliano Murillo, Jordan Juarez, Jacqueline Macias, Jessica Sanchez, Miranda Oliveira, Dream Nava, Peyton Waters, Charlotte Beer, Simon Watson, Esme Sands, Yannick Hernandez, Emma Acosta, Matt Marquez, and Ezra Williams.
Sorry. On to the consent agenda. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Board members, any questions, comments?
Well, one question, and maybe it's just a procedural. If most of those field trips are canceled now, do we have to pull that off the agenda, off the consent agenda?
I don't see a need to pull it.
Okay.
We may need to repost them depending on dates if they can be rescheduled.
Okay.
I don't see a need to pull it though.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Student Learning and Achievement, item 8A, presentation on the 2019-2020 LCAP monthly update. I'd like to call in Mr. Christopher Heller.
Great, thank you. Good evening. This is the March 2020 update, and we'll come back and just take a look again at our 3 overarching goals for the LCAP this year. A reminder that this is the year 3 of our 3-year plan, so we will be working on a new LCAP plan for the next 3 years in the coming months. This month we're going to talk a little bit about parent and community engagement, then the district's efforts to engage our stakeholders. First, we have our site-based parent opportunities. These are opportunities that parents have at any of the district sites to be involved with these various committees. As Dr. Wilson mentioned earlier tonight, I was going to point out just the incredible connection we have with all of the volunteers that work in our classrooms. It seems when I go and visit sites, I always go into a classroom where there's somebody working with students that is a member of our community. So that again needs to be applauded and thanked for all the support that they give on their own free time. This year, in the past, the district had based our parent nights through district-led initiatives, and with our attendance sometimes being sparse to not attended at all in some cases, we really felt that the site would do a better job in serving our parents based on their individual needs. That is, our overarching district goals may not apply to certain parents in certain age groups. So we shifted that to the sites to generate parent nights that would meet their needs a little more specifically, and that's been very well received not only by the parents but by our administrators. They feel like there's been a better connection with our families, and that the value that they have received from in their feedback, which we'll talk about in a second, has shown that. This right here is our district event survey form, and I kind of laugh, not really because it's not funny, but the form itself has been in our LCAP for 2 years and has been one of our, like, we haven't really addressed it and used it, and so we really made a push this year to bring it out and determine, is this something that we want to use to get feedback about these events, because it seems that the sites can generate that a little bit more frequently and have better data once they perform their events. And so this is a sample from the high school, and Mr. Cinto did a great job of preparing a pie chart for me and also including the feedback from his parents. So you could see that most parents met the mark where they're satisfied, but it also includes opportunities for us to take a look at what we're doing and making sure that we're meeting the mark and serving our parents. Also, for our parents and community, we have district level community or committees, superintendent subcommittees, which we highlighted earlier that 2 of our governing board members sit on. And of course, our LCAP steering committee, which helps oversee the LCAP and guide the process along. And one of the things that we'd really like to do is try to continue to recruit parents, but also retain the parents that are on those committees to have some longevity and some opportunity for transitions where possible. So sometimes we have parents for a year or 2, and then maybe they sunset or their students graduate, and we want to make sure there's continuity in parents that can continue in those committees as we move forward. We talked a little bit about this, and this was sent out for all of our stakeholders, but we have conducted these LCAP feedback forums. And one of the new requirements within the LCAP is that we serve our unduplicated populations a little bit better on these feedback opportunities. And so I know Mary Allen, hers at the RLS campus was designed to meet with AVID parents, advancement via individual determination. And my specific subgroup was working with parents of special education students who are part of our unduplicated population. So we need to continue to work in that area. This obviously came out in January, and we kind of had a sense of it, but it'll be something that we're going to continue to roll into our LCAP in the next 3 years to get more of their voice involved in the decision making. So our next steps, one of the things we're looking at is additional methods for feedback, not only doing the forums, but also looking at ways that we can conduct and receive feedback online. There's some programs we want to take a look at and see if they're viable for our district. I already talked about the unduplicated population to keep attracting and getting their perspectives. And next month, just to kind of foreshadow, we're going to collect all that information from our stakeholders and I have a quick turnaround to try to compile a report for you for April, but I hope to provide you a report of their feedback from the different forums. Any questions?
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Board members?
I just had one. Oh, sorry. No, please go. I know we're going to get a summarized presentation, if you will, of comments on the LCAP feedback forums.
Right.
But I'm just curious, were they well attended? I mean, overall,
I didn't actually. I have not collected the numbers. Mine in particular, I had 3 parents, but their insight actually in terms of my committee. Sometimes in the past, I've had 15 parents attend, but the insight that I got from those 3 parents was pretty powerful, and it changed some of the perceptions that I have of parents entering into our district and some of the needs that special education parents would have. So I think for me it was valuable. Maybe it wasn't so much quantity, but it was quality.
Sure.
And Mr. Howler, if I could add, the questions are posted on the district website as well, and we have received some written responses. And it is still posted on the website, and so if there was a parent that wanted to give feedback and wasn't able to join any of those forums, they are welcome to fill out that questionnaire and send it in to us.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That was my question as well.
Oh, okay.
About attendance. Thank you.
I'd just like to make a comment. I think that we had some really wonderful presentations for parents this year, and sometimes they're not as well attended as we would like, and I would like to use this opportunity for anyone who's watching either our video on YouTube or watching on our channel right now. Please take advantage of the wonderful presentations that we have for parents here at various times throughout the school year. I've been to several of them. They've all been fantastic. The Stanford well-balanced, the two well-balanced student presentations that we had were really excellent. And I think that those are just two that I attended myself. And I've been to many poorly attended presentations over the years that were just fantastic. I'd like to thank everyone who's been willing to present for our school district, and as well as the district office for organizing all these opportunities for our parents and guardians. Moving on to the Spanish program at the RLS.
Good
Karen
evening.
Cox.
So I want to give you a brief overview of our Spanish program at RLS. It's fairly solidified at this point. There was a lot of parent concern about the Spanish program the first year that I got there, and we really talked to families and staff and thought about how can we best meet the needs of everybody, and hit on a fairly successful strategy early on, and so we've stuck with that. I've had 0 parents that have been concerned about the Spanish program, and I know that even in the years when it's been a big issue in the district at some levels, people seem to be happy with the way that we're doing it. So as I said, we're pretty much sticking with what's been working. And what we're doing at this point is in 6th grade. So to step back just a bit, our overarching philosophy is that middle school is a time of transition, and it's an opportunity for students to figure out what it is they're really interested in, what they like to do. And in order to get a taste of what they like to do, we want to make sure that they're exposed to multiple different electives and enrichment classes. And so in 6th grade and 7th grade, that is what we try and do, is give kids an exposure to a variety of classes to find out what is it that they're really interested in. And then by the time they get to 8th grade, they have had enough of that they can choose what they want to do. And so in 6th grade, all the students in our elective rotation take Spanish. It is in 6th grade a mixed language ability grouping, so we don't separate in 6th grade by kids who are native speakers and students who are not native speakers. Instead, it's taught in a highly differentiated manner so that everybody can get what they need in that class. It is taught through the lens of Latino cultures, so it's actually Spanish language and culture. And if students or their parents want their student to have Spanish for the entire year, that's built in as an option. And we make it clear that if they would like to do that, or if they just want to think about that opportunity, then they request that they get Spanish first in the rotation. And then they can have that whole first trimester to make a decision about whether they want to move on through art and video or whether they want to remain in Spanish for the entire year. So students have that choice. And then they either can choose that 3-class rotation, or they can choose a year-long option, which is band. In 7th grade, it's very similar in that kids are still having an opportunity to expand on the classes that they took in 6th grade and have it in a little bit more depth. It builds on what they did in 6th grade. I think Jeff saw that when he went to our school. He could see how what they were doing in 6th grade is foundational for the next step in 7th grade and then ultimately in 8th grade. So again, it's a little different in 7th grade because we have 2 Spanish teachers, one for our native speakers or fluent speakers and one for students who are learning Spanish. And at that point, it's divided by ability because it's more academic and in-depth. So based on Spanish language level and building on what they already did in 6th grade, It is taught through the TPRS system, which is also used at the high school. And again, students can choose to request Spanish during the first trimester and then remain during the year. Because of the differentiation level, it's possible to make that work. And again, students have an option of doing either a 3-class rotation or a year-long, which is in 7th grade this year. And it does change. It's always band, and then it's depending on what our other performing arts teachers schedules, how that fits in. It might, some years it's drama or performing arts, or choir now is another option that can be a year-long class as well. And then by the time students make it to 8th grade, they've had 2 years of dabbling, and they get to make a choice, heading towards high school when they need to choose a more clear path. And so Spanish in 8th grade is taught as an option. Not every student gets it. It depends on whether they want to do that, or if they've decided that their interests lie in a different direction and they want to wait until high school to take Spanish, they can do that. So it is an optional full year elective course. Our Spanish class is again differentiated, so or separated, so that there's one class for fluent speakers and one class for beginning Spanish speakers. The class that's the heritage class is designed to primarily bolster students' academic Spanish. So the students in that class, for the most part, speak really, they are extremely fluent Spanish speakers, but many times they don't write Spanish very well and they don't read Spanish very well. And they're not very familiar with the academic language in Spanish, and that is the focus in 8th grade Spanish. So it does count as a high school class for college admission, so it is year 1 of the Spanish language or the foreign language requirement, and it is fully aligned with the equivalent high school course. They use the same assessments, the same final. They do everything in the same ways. The high school, it's identical. Some years Mariana has taught both, so it is literally identical. And again, heritage Spanish, at the end they can take a test, and depending on what their level is, they'll either move into heritage Spanish 2 or regular Spanish 3. And Spanish 1, taken at RLS, leads directly into the Spanish 2 course at Santa Elena High School. So once kids get through their 3 years of Spanish, they are prepared for success in high school, and some kids choose to have a jump on it and are easily able to get a seal of biliteracy through our program. And one thing that I didn't mention is part of the reason we did this also is that although early on there was a group of parents that felt strongly that every child should have Spanish every day, ultimately we made a decision, and parents have been very supportive, that every child is an individual, and for some kids having 7 academic classes, highly rigorous academic classes in a day, is asking a lot, and other students need to use the more artistic side of their brain. And if we make every child tell them what they have to do, then they don't have an opportunity to explore the other parts of them that make them fully functioning human beings. And I feel, and our staff agrees, and our parents apparently do too, that the arts are equally as important. So, any questions?
Who wishes to publicly comment on this item? Trustees, any questions?
I just, as far as 8th grade, how many classes of Spanish are there then? How many students participate in the year?
It varies. Some years, well, we always offer 2. So we have the Spanish 1 class and the heritage class. Some years, I would say the class sizes get quite large. We've had years where it's been, I think the year Joe was in, it was big. Some years it's 25 to 30 would be really big, 25-ish, and some years it's more like 18. So it kind of varies. I would say low 20s is pretty typical for most of our electives, and it's been nicely divided this year because typically we have students who have to do maybe a second choice elective that they get into, and this year we've been lucky enough that our elective programs have built to the point where there's kind of an equal demand across the board, and it's spread out really well, and everybody got what they wanted, and the class sizes maintained equilibrium, which felt like a miracle and worked out great. So I'm not sure that's going to happen every year, but it was a very nice thing this year. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions, Julio?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. You said, I think for sixth grade, they have the option to do the 1 year, right? Or every semester. So how does it work if, let's say, they're not beginning in Spanish? They maybe not fluent, but they understand Spanish. How does that work when they go into the second semester? Because it's a whole new set of new students coming in. You said it's differentiated.
Right. Because there's such a variety of ability in that class that it's very easy for Miss Olguin to continue students on wherever they are, because she's designed the program so that people can jump in anywhere. So if they stay for the year, it works out. There'll be somebody else at their level that's one semester behind anyway. So does that make sense? Yeah, it works out well.
And then a second question to follow up. Would you say are many students, like at that lower level, are they selecting that full year, or are they kind of doing more of the rotation?
We typically have maybe, it varies by year, but not very many. You know, it turns out that kids want an opportunity to try lots of things for the most part. We usually have maybe 2 or 3, I think about 2 typically, 2 or 3 kids that say, yeah, I want to stay. Yeah. So it's awesome that we have figured out a way to do it so that is an option. And that's really, I think, the most important thing for our families is they want to be given that choice.
Right. Thank you.
I actually, can you remind me how many instructional minutes are there in the Spanish class?
So it's exactly the same as all of our other courses, which is 3 50-minute classes a week and then an 89-minute block.
Okay, all right.
So it's essentially 5 days a week. It's
perfect.
Yeah.
And then you did allude to this, but is there regular ongoing vertical articulation between high school Spanish teachers and primarily 8th grade, obviously, because, and I know obviously Mariana, she works both, so that kind of takes care of that. But is Miss Doreen also involved in that, I would imagine?
She is. As a matter of fact, I think Mr. Cinto may have been or at the last vertical articulation meeting with the foreign language teachers, but also Miss Doreen, especially because she's part-time and she's very interested in making sure that she's on top of it. She chooses, the new contract requires teachers to do a certain amount of peer observations. And she has done much of that at the high school with my permission, because she wants to make sure that she's on the right page and that they're teaching in a way that articulates well.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thank you. So next we have item 8C, presentation on the development of the SHUSD's Calistoga Joint Unified School District Transition Program. I'd like to call on Mr. Christopher Heller.
Great, thank you. Tonight we'd like to introduce the notion of the transition program that we're working in partnership with Calistoga Joint Unified on in hopefully developing this program to start in the fall of 2020. Let's take a look at a transition program. So for our special education students, we have programs designed to integrate the 18 to 22-year-olds into the community, into work-based programs, and into life skills that they'll need once they transition out of a school setting. Currently, Calistoga is contracting with the Sonoma County Office of Education and having their students drive over the hill each day. And we are incorporating that within our special day class at the high school. And last spring, as their counterpart to me and I had this discussion, we had the idea of what does this look like if we did this up valley for our 2 districts. And so we began exploring what it might look like between our district and their district to have a partnership in developing this program. One of the things that's a challenge is developing this program is there's multiple points of entry that we have to consider, and several of them were the location and who is responsible for evaluating the staff, and what does the program look like, what is the program design, how are we going to get there, and of course one of Andy's biggest concerns is what does this look like within the budget, right? So through this process, through in the fall and early winter so far, we have a verbal agreement to work together in a partnership with Calistoga, and we've crossed over several hurdles to get to this point, and we've actually developed a budget that, in partnership with them, works very well with some certain scenarios that we still need to work out as far as staffing. But the key piece of this is we had an agreement to look for a consultant, and there's very few consultants in the area that would be willing to contract with us, just because of our location, and it would be a huge cost. But one of our benefits is we have an employee, Nick Joy, on staff who is actually writing his doctorate in transition, and he's been nothing but excited about this since we've introduced the concept to him. So it just made natural sense for him to take over and begin the program design. So in fact, Principal Cinto and I have a meeting with him tomorrow at 9 o'clock just to get a sense of how he's doing and what challenges he might be running to and what he's developing. Some of the things that we need to continue to explore, are partnerships with businesses and entities in the community where students can, obtain some work skills. And so there are several components to this, and none of them kind of jump ahead of the other. They all kind of run in concert together. So it's been a slow process, but it's actually been very rewarding in a lot of ways to see where we are now and look at the next step. So we're getting there. So we just wanted to share with the community and you tonight where we stand, and then kind of take a look at our next steps. And this is where we truly are, is taking a look at the program design and where we can develop our community partnerships. It is a different program altogether than a compulsory education that we offer on a school site, so it won't be conducted at the school site. It'll be off site altogether, and with that comes a different, day length. It comes with different times of day that they might start, and it might start, a week or two after we start our traditional school year. So those are some things that we need to continue to work out in terms of the design. We need to determine the staff and hire them and have them be an active part of the program as it gets developed. And then we also need to inform our parents that and the students of what this program looks like, and incorporate that within their IEP, individualized education plan goals. So while I'm optimistic, we still have several hurdles to get over, but I feel like we're making significant progress from the beginning of the year. And I'd be open to any questions that you might have that I hopefully can answer.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions or comments?
I have a quick question. So how many students, like if it started next in the fall, between Calistoga and ourselves?
We've done a 5-year projection of students, and it'll vary. They'll have, I believe we have 4 next year, and they have 4, and so that's one of the pieces of the budget, is determining is it a true 50-50 split, or do we have an equal contribution, and then one district, whoever has more enrollment, would pay for a little bit more. So there's some pieces there that we need to look at. Our enrollment projections actually are a little smaller to begin with, and then in the out years towards the end increase significantly. Right. So obviously budget is a factor, and we're working in concert to make sure that it's a viable program and that it doesn't exceed our projections.
Right. Now, is there any, and maybe this is, probably your answer is no, otherwise it would be an easier way for you right now, but is there any other districts that have this relationship to get, with their two school
a joint
districts?
partnership?
Yes.
Probably none with our unique circumstances. That there are different models that we could look at and explore within other counties, but we felt that Nick had enough expertise and background that with those other entities that he can kind of design it with our. It really depends a lot on the partnerships that you develop it with the workforce. And I think we're all very confident that Nick's going to be the person that can design the program to best suit our students' needs. He knows the students.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I had a question. What's the teacher to student ratio look like? So if it's 8 students, how many teachers would you be looking at?
We are projecting 1 teacher and possibly 2 paras, maybe 1 para. For sure 1 teacher, and then the para-educator support would potentially ebb and flow.
Any other questions?
No, I'm really excited by the option. I think it's really wonderful. I think it's giving due diligence and service to all students, and that includes that group. So I thank you for working on the partnership. That's great.
Yep. Thank you.
I also have one final comment. I had a question earlier before the meeting about where the locations were being looked at, and I was actually very happy to hear that the districts are planning the program first, and then finding the location that fits the program rather than trying to build a program that fits a location. And I just think that that's a really thoughtful and intelligent way to serve our students the best way. And I just wanted to share that aspect of the program with everyone. So moving on, we have, thank you, Chris. Moving on, we have 8D, the summer school report. And this is a written report. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, do you have any questions?
I have a question. Looking at the high school math acceleration, it says here for students who have met the eligibility requirements who would like to advance or skip integrated 2, integrated 3, and or trigonometry. Working in with that trigonometry class, would that also include the pre-calculus dual enrollment, or is that completely separate?
Mr. Cinto, would you like to come on up and answer that particular question?
Can you restate your question?
So for the students who would participate in the math acceleration to do trigonometry over the summer,
Right.
would that incorporate the current dual enrollment system within the pre-calculus and trigonometry class?
No, no, we can't run that class during the college course during summer, but we can still run trigonometry.
Okay.
So it's a way for students to get to calculus, which is the other dual enrollment course, because high school trigonometry covers entrance into Math 120.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for the report, Mary Ellen.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm sorry, I just want to say, and then I also noticed the breakfast program again as well. And I know that's just a very small portion of the summer program, but it's great to see it again.
It was a huge success. And
yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
We're going to continue it on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So board-related items, item 9A, review and consider approval for guidelines and application form for commemorative donations, additions to facilities or grounds. Would like to call on Miss Andy Stubbs.
Thank you very much. The board directed staff to develop some guidelines and an application form for donated commemorative additions to facilities or grounds. And so we prepared a draft. We took it to our Business Operations Committee earlier this month, and they reviewed the draft, and they provided us with some feedback. We've incorporated that feedback into the draft that you see here. And the very first thing that you'll see is some new proposed language to Board Policy 3290, which is gifts, grants, and bequests. And later this evening, the board will be considering that revised board policy for approval, and it essentially references our new proposed process. And so then within the guidelines, you can see that we have criteria for all these different elements of plaques and other commemorative additions. For example, criteria around size, material and content, location, funding source. And the intent is that the district would only be considering commemorative additions that were sourced by donated funds with no ongoing costs. We have a clause in there for special circumstances, as you can see, and then the process also includes review and consideration of approval by the superintendent or designee. So then these requests would not be coming back to the board for review. It would become an internal process, which we think is very appropriate. And we do have one request that's out there currently, which is the request for a plaque commemorating Craig Bond, a former teacher. And so if the board approves these guidelines in the application form this evening, then district staff would then work with that particular group to go through this application together with them, and they would be the first applicants essentially to go through this process. And so with that, I would entertain questions from the board and ask that you consider approval of these new guidelines in the application form.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions?
Question. At the committee meeting where this was reviewed and supported, I'm curious how many people were in attendance at that committee meeting?
I believe 6 people, 6 members altogether, including 2 board members.
Okay.
If I
Okay, great.
recall.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the guidelines and application form for commemorative donated additions to facilities or grounds as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried. Request for approval of board policy revisions for March 2020.
Yes, as Trustee Pelosi mentioned earlier, we do have a committee that works to keep our board policies updated, and there is much work to do with regards to board policies. If you take a look at them actually in hard copy, you need 6-inch binders to truly carry all of them. So a shout out to all members of that policy committee who keep us current and up to date, and Erica, who keeps us in line and maintains all of the records around these board policies. There are a number that are on the screen tonight, and I know that you've had an opportunity to look at all of them. I would recommend that they be approved as recommended. They are legal updates, CSBA updates, nothing out of the ordinary, very routine in nature.
Is there any public comment on this agenda item as presented? Trustees, do you have any questions or comments?
I don't have any questions regarding the policies, but my comment is a huge thank you to the policy committee, because there's a lot here, and it's a lot. There's a lot to read and a lot to kind of sink in stuff. So I appreciate all the work of that committee, definitely.
So on that note, I'll just say that the committee is run really efficiently. There's a lot of shared work that it's divided up. The workload is divided up among the entire committee, and Erica does a really fantastic job. Thank you, Erica. And is there a motion to approve the board policy revisions for March 2020 as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Item 9C, which is the request for adoption of Resolution 19-17, Week of the Volunteer. I would like to call on Jeannie to read the resolution, or call on Mary Lou first? No, okay. Jeannie, would you like to read the resolution?
I would be happy to.
Thank you.
So this resolution 19-17, School Volunteer Appreciation Week 2020. Whereas School Volunteer Week offers the opportunity to recognize and to thank school volunteers who contribute unselfishly to the success of the St. Helena Unified School District students, teaching and support staff, and the goals of public education, And whereas parental and community involvement is a significant factor in the quality of our schools and the success of our students. And whereas we appreciate the dedicated volunteers who give their time and talent to assist professional educators and support staff. And whereas volunteers reflect the highest values of our society and become role models for students by demonstrating an interest in education. And whereas volunteers are called upon to assist teachers and staff with the day-to-day activities involved in providing a quality education for our students and are an important part of a team that strives to ensure that each and every one of our students succeeds. And whereas it is fitting to support the goals of this observance as when parents, schools, and communities work together in preparing today's students for tomorrow's world, therefore be it resolved that the governing board of the St. Helena Unified School District recognize the week of April 19th, 2020 through April 25th, 2020 as School Volunteer Week. I want to thank all the volunteers. We have so many in our school district that it's amazing the work that they do and the support that they give to all of our teachers and our students. And it's a huge thank you from all of us to our volunteers.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? I just want to note that all of the administrators always have a volunteer of the month on their monthly school report. And is there any trustees who have any questions or comments?
President Haug, may I mention a few of the ways,
yes,
the strategies our principals use to celebrate our volunteers? Many of the teachers and students write personal thank you notes and make small gifts for volunteers to say thank you. One of our schools hosts an after-school activity where student artwork is posted and treats are shared. One of the things that I really liked about one of our principals was he said, we support their work because the volunteers are so important at our school. We support what they do and what they want to accomplish. All of our principals and our school community, as you all know, value volunteers greatly, and we appreciate everything they do.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson. I can attest to that. I still have a shopping bag with fabric paint ladybugs on it that I received as a second grade reading a volunteer from the primary school. So thank you to all our volunteers. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 19-17, Week of the Volunteer, as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll make the second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Carried. Facilities, 10A. March 2020 Facilities Update is a written report. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, do you have any questions? Comments? I do not. Thank you. Moving on to item 10B. Award contract, a contract to C&J Painting for the interior painting at SHHS, SHES, and RLS. I'd like to call on Ms. Sandy Stubbs.
Thank you. We identified several rooms at each school site that we would like to paint over the summer, and so we went out to informal bid through our CUPCA process, which is the Uniform Cost Accounting Act, which allows us to go out for informal bid for projects under $200,000. And we received quite a few bids back with quite a range, as you can see if you look at the bid tabulation. And so we reviewed all those bids carefully, and the lowest responsible and responsive bid was with C&J Painting out of Napa. They've done quite a few projects in other school districts, and we feel very confident about their work. And so we would ask that the board approve a contract for $36,000 with C&J Painting to complete the summer work, and this already lives in the routine restricted maintenance budget that the board has been approving with our now with our second interim report this evening.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Do the trustees have any questions?
I have just like a logistical question, a clarification. So with these bids, just because there was such a large spread as far as the amounts, it's the lowest bidder. Now, will there be it's not like a huge project, but will there be change orders that might increase that cost then, or?
Well, I certainly hope not. I
Right.
actually reviewed these bids with our construction manager, and he said that as long as you review all the bid documents carefully, which we did, and review the references that they provided and who they worked with before, we shouldn't have any issues with change orders.
Okay. So they can't come back and say that's going to be actually more money than what they bid out. Then is that correct?
Based on all the bid documentation that they have to sign, they shouldn't.
Okay.
We said no additions, no changes in there, and we were very clear about the scope. We said in this room it's this many square feet, and we need this kind of painting and this kind of trim, and so the scope was very clear.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions, trustees? Is there a motion to award a contract to C&J Painting for the interior painting at SHHS, SHES, and RLS as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. 11A, Human Resources, review and consider approval of Executive Cabinet salary schedules. Dr. Mary Lou Wilson.
Yes, and if I may, I'm going to speak to 11A, B, and C collectively, President Haug, and then ask that you would go back to each one of them individually for either board discussion and approval. All of you know whenever I bring Andy and Chris to the table, they begin turning a little bit red over there and a little bit embarrassed because while they are executive members of our cabinet and incredibly hard workers and skilled beyond skilled, they're also very humble and don't like to be publicly affirmed. So tonight I do that anyway because I can. And what's before you in letter A is a revision to their salary schedule to take their salaries in alignment with the raises that have been negotiated over the course of this year and the next 2 years. And then when you look at their actual contract amendments, while it reflects those salary raises, it also reflects an extension to their contract. I believe that they are valuable members of this team, and the great things that are happening within this district are a team effort, and they are a big piece of that. And so the amendment would allow for those raises and then also extend their contract another year, taking them through June 20 of 23. They're not allowed to leave us. I'm happy to answer any questions, and it's with stars and coaches and all kinds of great actions on these two that I wholeheartedly recommend approval of all three items.
Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this these agenda items? Trustees, we're also going to consider all three agenda items. Do you have any questions or comments?
I would like to echo the words of the superintendent. It's just fascinating to watch from the board's perspective to have a superintendent and aligned with our other two top district employees that give so much. And the COVID-19, the smoke, you name it, they know all the stuff. Everybody's informed, and it's really, I see it as a comforting. They've shared duties where they've led the school when the superintendent's been out on vacation, and it's an opportunity for the whole school to keep running seamlessly and give the best educational product. So I believe that we always have to invest in the top. And so to me, this is absolutely the right thing. Of course, asking for a couple more years, but also making it financial, because you do make a difference, and we appreciate everything you do to help our students succeed. So thank you.
So, trustees, first of all, item 11A. Is there a motion to approve the executive cabinet salary schedules as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 11B. This is the contract amendment number 7 for Andrea Stubbs. Is there a motion to approve the contract amendment number 7 for Andrea Stubbs, Chief Business Official, as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Oh, excuse me, Board President. I think there was a typo because I think it's supposed to go to 2033. Is that correct?
Oh, 2030. Wow.
Never mind. I need my glasses. I'm sorry. 2023. Okay, thank you.
So is there a motion to approve the contract amendment number 7 for Andrea Stubbs, Chief Business Official, as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. And item 11C, the approval of contract amendment number 6 for Christopher James Heller, Chief Academic Human Resource Officer. Is there a motion to approve the contract amendment number 6 for Christopher James Heller, Chief Academic Resource Officer, as presented?
I'll make that motion for the number 6 for Christopher James Heller, Chief Academic Human Resources Officer.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to you're just a really fabulous addition to our team, both of you. 12A. It's going to be the second. Now this is why we get to see the work of Andy. So it's very impressive. Review and consider approval of the 2019-2020 second interim report. Ms. Andy Stubbs.
Thank you. And I'm taking a new approach with our presentations for these budget reports. What I'd like to do with each one now is highlight a couple of items for each one, and then of course the full presentation is in the board agenda for reference. And so tonight's focus will be on budget development and changes since the 2019-20 first interim report. And so just to give you a little kind of a behind-the-scenes look at budget development, we have approximately 1,900 active expenditure and revenue accounts in our financial database, and then also an additional couple hundred asset, liabilities, cash accounts. And all of these accounts are reviewed and updated before each reporting period. And so you can see there's some examples of different transactions. So for example, we take a look at changes to the state budget and the federal budget for a variety of programs. We make budget changes at every reporting period. With our expenditure changes, we make personnel changes in the budget based on hires, adjustments to supplemental pay, for example, substitute account line items. And as the board knows, we budget for grants and donations as they come in, both from the revenue standpoint and the expenditure standpoint. And then periodically we get new changes, for example, escape implementation because we're moving to a new financial software. We've talked about the transition program. That's another example of a change, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then with each reporting period, we go through all those different accounts, and so sometimes we have to make small adjustments. I always try and capture the big changes for the board. And then sometimes we're shifting money from one account category to the other. So for example, with our site budgets, we start off with their discretionary budgets in the supplies and operating accounts. And then sometimes periodically during the year, they might change and move those monies over to services and operating. This slide here gives you another kind of a behind-the-scenes peek at how we manage our budget review. And so this is a screen snapshot from our current financial system, Digital Schools, and our chart of accounts. And then the first column there shows all of our federal revenue programs and accounts. And so we have the original budget column, and then you can see some slight changes when we got to first interim report, which was presented in December, and then some changes again with our second interim report. And so this is the type of review that we do for all of our accounts all throughout the year. And then this screen snapshot here provides a comparison of the multi-year projection at first interim with the multi-year projection at second interim. And what I always like to draw the board's focus to would be the line in the pink there, the unrestricted surplus or deficit to the fund balance. And so in this case, on the unrestricted side of the house, we have a budgetary deficit in 1920 of $478,026. $28. My astigmatism is acting up again. And we wouldn't have quite that much of a deficit if we didn't have a large one-time payment for STRS and PERS retirement incentive. If we didn't have that in the current year, then we would be in the black by about $400,000. And then we do have a bit of a structural deficit in 2021 and 21-22. And while, as the board knows, we've approved some salary increases for all employees over the next 3 years, we are also closed with our contract for the next 3 years, and we also are budgeting at just a 3% property tax growth in 2021 and 21-22, because we have to budget that conservatively. That's part of our budget assumptions, but our property taxes historically have come in quite a bit higher than that. And so as we see our property taxes come in, then I forecast that we will see that red go away, and then we'll have a surplus again. And the board approved an allocation plan with the first interim report where we've identified some different programs and things that we want to earmark those dollars for. And so the next slide shows, when you look at the second interim report, you can see that we're a little bit less negative, so to speak, looking at the deficit to the fund balance in 1920, and a little bit less negative, so to speak, when we're comparing 2020-21, first interim and second interim, but then a little bit more negative in the out years. And all of that is a compilation of some of the changes that we've done since first interim. For example, in current year, we received a one-time increase of $90,100 for special education preschool funding, and that was part of the governor's trailer bill language for the 2019-20 state budget. We also received a one-time increase of $16,146 in the current year for state funding to mitigate the loss of property taxes during the wildfires. This year we had to increase our expense account by about $33,000 for our financial software conversion going to Escape. But in the out years, that ongoing increase is approximately $21,000. And then we are expected to receive an increase of about $68,000 for special education funding beginning in 2021, again per some trailer bill language proposed. And that will help to offset the cost for the transition program that we talked about. And because of that, in part, and some other factors, we anticipate that we'll just need a net estimated increase of about $110,000 in expenses beginning next year for the special education transition program. And then the numbers that you see there are also a net compilation of various small transactions to revenue and expense accounts as we review everything. And so if we're just comparing our reserves by percentage, first interim to second interim, you can see that we're still meeting our minimum reserve requirement of 3%. And then this slide here outlines some of the next steps that we'll take. So the second interim will go to the County Office of Education for review. And we're continuing to work on our 2019-20 district budget and, in fact, getting ready for 2021. And with that, I would ask the board to consider approving the 2019-20 second interim report.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any questions?
Just thank you, Andy, there's a lot there for us, and I appreciate it very much because you do make it easier to read for those who don't speak that same language that you do. So thank you very much.
I have a quick question. This is, I just saw it today, the letter from the Napa County Office of Education regarding the first interim. And it does mention the having the budget deficits in the off years going forward, and they're saying that they advise us not to have that and things. They do understand our circumstances as far as where we budget for 3%, but normally we get an increase of our property tax. I suspect that they know about that then, and okay.
Our account reviewer at Napa County Office of Ed with a complete multi-year projection, and she can drill down and see what all of our assumptions are, even in greater detail than what you see in the full presentation that I usually do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if anything, it's more kind of a form letter that we're receiving then? And
Yes, they're required to do that anytime there's any structural deficit, but we still fall within the FCMAT allowable range for deficit spending, which is one of the boxes that's checked within the report, within the full report.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions, trustees? Is there a motion to approve the 2019-2020 second interim report as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have item 12B, update on transportation services, planning for 2020 and 2021. Ms. Andrea Stubbs.
Thank you. And as the board knows, Napa Unified has chosen to discontinue providing us with transportation services effective June 30th, 2020. And so we've been looking at some different transportation options. And during the February 13th board meeting, the board approved a contract with Pupil Transportation Information. And so they've been assisting us with a study. They came out and did their field work February 26th, 27th. They were here in district for about half a day. They were in Calistoga, and then they actually went to Napa Unified and reviewed the fleet there. And they interviewed a lot of folks and gathered a lot of information, and have been continuing to work on their study and provide me with some advice as we've been going along. And so the next steps include a report of their findings and recommendations, which will be brought to the board April 2nd. And then they'll have their full draft prepared for the May 14th board meeting. This evening, I'll be asking the board to consider approving a contract with Michael's Transportation for temporary staffing so that we can continue to provide, at the very least, special education required transportation next year to our students. But then the contract is flexible to allow for whatever degree of home-to-school transportation the board decides to approve. And that was under advisement from PTI, Pupil Transportation Information. They confirmed that all the bus companies that I've been looking into for the past year, Durham, First Student, and so forth, those are the only games in town, so to speak, that could offer full-service transportation, but they don't have the capacity to provide it for our district. And that Michael's is the only company around that can do this kind of temporary staffing. They've also been helping me identify some bus companies that can allow us to rent or lease some buses on a temporary basis to give us more time to look into purchasing buses as we learn more about the board direction around what level of transportation we want to offer in the out years. And so that provides you with a little bit of an update for this evening, and then you'll hear more certainly during the April 2nd and the May 4th board meetings.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any more questions?
Well, just a quick question. So that with Michael's, it would be the just the personnel then, right? The drivers, but not any of the buses.
Correct. Yes, I've asked them if they could also provide the buses because they've been able to do that for districts in the past, but unfortunately they don't have the capacity right now to take over everything and provide us with the buses too.
And then part of the the findings from the transportation company will be, as far as maybe will include the, what am I trying to say? The cost of bus drivers then throughout the, like if we were to go in house. I mean, they're going to explore a lot of different areas then.
Yes, absolutely, including potential collaboration with Calistoga Joint Unified. We've done this in conjunction with them.
Okay.
And what I really like about their study format is that they're going to include all the recommendations to help us build a program that's compliant, so procedurally, so inspections that we would have to do and driver training and so forth.
Okay.
So whatever level the board ultimately approves for transportation, we'll have all the tools that we need to be able to set that up.
Great.
And then the contract with Michaels will allow us to sustain all the way up to the current level of service if we want to going into next year.
Okay, that's great. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I did have one clarification. I'm sorry, I just saw my note on my laptop here. There on the spreadsheet, if you will, that has lists Michael's Transportation, and it talks about the different quantities. There's a minimum there. It says C section St. Helena Unified School District agrees to, and then bullet C. And perhaps it's just me. I kept reviewing it, but I didn't see a bullet C. I saw a bullet A and a bullet B. And so I didn't know if it was a typo or if I just was not, I don't know. Where I'm on page 3.
Oh, I see. Mm-hmm.
So when you go to like the one that's the graph, but see how there's no bullet C? But yet if you go, and maybe it's just something that I don't even need to pay attention to, but I just noticed that there was no, because it says agrees to, and then bullet C, and for agreeing to, I just didn't know what bullet C was.
I can review that. If the board will entertain approving this contract tonight, I can review that. If there's any substantive change, if it's more than just a typo, then I can report back to the board. And if need be, even bring a revised version back to the April 2nd board
Thanks.
meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly accept that. I just wanted to make sure if you could take a moment to look at that afterwards, that would be great.
So thank you, Andy, for all that work. Now we move on to 12C, approval of contracts over $25,000, and that would include the Michaels Transportation. And Andy, you're going to tell us about the other contract as well.
Yes, and so this would be a contract with SPUR, which is a Joint Powers Authority buying group, and this would allow us to purchase about $126,000 in infrastructure equipment at a 70% discount at a cost of about $38,000 through SPUR, which we're very excited about. This is a grant opportunity through the E-rate program, and our IT staff has helped to identify a variety of internet equipment, routers, wireless access points, and switches and so forth that we need. And then if we can seize upon this opportunity now, then we'll receive that deep discount. And we'll use Measure B dollars, which are allocated for technology infrastructure. And then additionally is the Michaels contract, with which we discussed.
Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, any further questions? Is there a motion to approve contracts over $25,000 as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. So now we have item 12D, second board review of the 2020-2021 draft budget assumptions. This is a written report. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly comment on this agenda item? Trustees, do you have any questions? This is where everything is highlighted in yellow quite helpfully. So then if there are no questions, we'll be moving on to item 12E, This is a public hearing and approval of the developer fee justification study and resolution 1915 in the matter of increasing school facilities fees as authorized by Government Code Section 65995B3.
Thank you. And we have collected approximately $100,000 so far this year in developer fees for commercial and residential development. About $210,000 last year and almost $244,000 the prior year. And so we do collect quite a bit in developer fees, which help us with renovation projects. And every other year, the State Allocation Board increases the amount that school districts may charge for developer fees. And so the board is asked to conduct a public hearing and approve the required justification study and associated resolution that will allow us to make that change. And once the board approves those items, then we can increase the fees 60 days later.
So this is a public hearing for the developer fee justification study and resolution 1915 in the matter of increasing school facility fees. I declare this public hearing open at 7:54 p.m. During this public hearing, comments should be limited to the developer fee justification study. It is our goal to hear from all who wish to be heard. We now invite members of the audience to address the Board of Trustees on the developer fee justification study. I'm just going to remind everyone who might be new to the audience that we do have to allow at least 1 minute for anyone to make public comments. So we do not have any comments, and I want to thank everyone in attendance. The public hearing is now closed at 7:56 p.m. Do the trustees have any questions about the matter of increasing school facilities fees? Is there a motion to approve the adoption of Resolution 1915 in the matter of increasing school facilities fees as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. On to item 13A. We have future agenda items. So April 2nd is a regular meeting of the school board, but it does come a week early. So a week earlier than our normal second Thursday of the month due to the spring break. So is there any questions on future agenda items? Do you have any subjects for future agenda items? Okay. So now the item 14A, we have public comment on closed session items. The instructions for public comment are on the screen. Is there anyone present who wishes to publicly comment on concerning tonight's closed session agenda items? Thank you. The board will now adjourn to closed session to discuss only the items on tonight's closed session agenda. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.